Morning, guys. On Matthew 23, reading from verse 29 to 36. We're looking at the last woe, the last very strong words that Jesus has towards the Pharisees and scribes. He says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites." Again, he says that. "For you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous." It makes me think of how the Catholics venerate the saints and relics and things like that. And sometimes we can be distracted by, just perhaps even worshipping people instead of God. But the point here is that they adorn the outside of the tomb, and what's inside the tomb are these dead man's bones. And he goes on to say, "If we had been living in the days of our fathers, we would have not have been partakers with them in shedding the blood of the prophets." It's easy to say, we wouldn't be part of this war. If we look at the Catholics and the Protestants fighting each other in the different wars, we wouldn't be part of this and that. Yet many people in the past, like even Peter himself, says, "No, I'll never deny you, Jesus," and then he ends up denying him. So we've got to be careful of what we say, and be careful of pride. In 1 Corinthians 10:12 it says, "Therefore let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed that lest he falls." So we must just make sure that we worship God and Him alone. And it goes on to say 31, "So you testify against yourselves that you are the sons who murdered the prophets." So they end up doing the very thing that they're so proud that they haven't done, because Jesus sends the prophets like Stephen, and then they martyr Stephen. God sends His own Son who's perfect, and they kill Him, and they do the very thing they say they're so proud that they haven't done. And it says in verse 32, "Fill up then the measure of the guilt of your fathers." And so Jesus, with His patience, is going to wait until they've done enough sin for the judgment to fall. And that's very much, even if we go back to Genesis, we see the Amorites sinning, and God waiting for the Amorite sin to come in fulfillment before the judgment comes. He says, "You serpents, you brood of vipers, who will escape the sentence of hell? Therefore, before I am sending you prophets and wise men and scribes, some of them you will kill and crucify," and end up crucifying Jesus. "Some of them you'll scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city." And we see that almost every single apostle ended up being murdered by these scribes and Pharisees, or the teachers of the law, in some way or another. And persecution is always part of the church. It's part of standing for the truth. And so if we go to the last verse that we're going to read, 35, it says, "So that upon you may fall the guilt of all the righteous blood shed on earth." And it just makes me think of, in Revelation, it talks about the blood of the saints crying out, the innocent blood that gets shed in the end. From the blood of the righteous Abel, remember Cain killing Abel, and the blood crying out from the earth, to the blood of Zechariah, he's the last prophet that gets killed, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. And that happened in 2 Chronicles 24, verse 20 to 22, where Zechariah gets stoned in the temple. And so that persecution is throughout church history. When we stand up for the truth, we will get persecuted. It's part and parcel of being a Christian. Just back to Genesis 15, talking about God's patiently waiting for that iniquity to come in completion. He's doing the same here with the scribes and Pharisees. In Genesis 15:16 it says, "And they shall come back," here with the Amorites, "in the 4th generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete." verse 36, going back to Matthew 23, truly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. So very, very strong words, these woes, these warnings against them. Like he says, what will stop you from going to hell? And it's quite a scary statement. So we need to, again, just examine our own hearts. Where do we stand? Which side of the fence are we on this morning? Amen.